Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Adrielle and I'm currently narrating a story of my life dating back from January 2016. In the previous episode, I talked about me getting served papers because Hidden Valley was taking me to court. And I also mentioned how I had dreams about Brandon in the previous episode. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the dreams and I'm also going to talk about Brandon. So I would say this episode and the next 2 to 3 episodes, they're really going to be about Brandon. So here it goes. So the dream I had December 14, I think it was like 3 dreams all in one day, or probably it was back-to-back days. But I want to start with the first dream. The first dream I had was I remember being on Facebook and I was checking Brandon's page. I was on Brandon's page on Facebook. I went through his photo album and I saw a picture of Brandon, Caitlin, and Lily. And the date of the picture was July 2020. In the picture, Brandon, Caitlin, and Lily had this group hug. And it seemed as if they were like probably at a store or somewhere, but they were outside and they had a group hug and they took a picture. So in the dream, I'm looking at this picture on Facebook. The next thing you know, the scene switches. It switches to Brandon being on vacation. And I would say this was probably like Hawaii or Puerto Rico, somewhere where there was a beach, right? Brandon was on vacation, and in the dream, he was on vacation by himself because I knew he was single. So in this part of the dream, Brandon was no longer with Caitlin and around her kids. He was single. So that was the end of the dream. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, is this God's way of letting me know that Brandon is no longer with Caitlin? Or because at this time, I'm having dreams that Brandon and Caitlin were no longer going to be together. But the last time I checked on Brandon and Caitlin back in September, they were still together. So I'm like, okay, that's one dream. Now, the second dream I had, this is one that's really interesting. The second dream I had, I was on Instagram. And I remember just scrolling down my feed on Instagram, and then a picture of Brandon popped up. Brandon's picture popped up on my feed, and it was Brandon standing in the middle of a gym. And I remember reading the caption. It said, "I'm back." The next thing you know, I teleported into the picture. So I went from looking at the picture on Instagram to me being in the picture. So I get in the picture. As I'm in the picture, y'all, I'm in the gym. I'm with Brandon. Here's the thing. I can see Brandon. Brandon cannot see me. So in the dream, Brandon was in the gym, and I remember he set up his camera because he was going to shoot content for, workout content for like a sponsorship or something. So I'm looking at him. He sets up the camera and he is sitting down. I forgot the exercise he was going to do, but I remember him sitting down, and I looked down at his foot. I can't remember if it was his left foot or his right foot, but y'all, Brandon had a boot on his foot. And I'm like, what happened to Brandon? So in my mind, I'm like, yo, he injured himself, but how? Like, what happened to him? I'm watching him speaking to the camera, about to shoot this sponsorship. The next thing you know, the scene switches. The scene switches to Brandon being in a house in Oklahoma. I don't know whose house it was, but in the dream, it seemed to have been a house that he was living in. So in the dream, the scene switches to Brandon being in the house, but I'm not in the house. I'm kind of like back to where I was, but I can just see everything. So Brandon is in the house. The next thing you know, he gets a knock on the door. And it's these 3 white guys that are at the door. So in the dream, these guys were Brandon's friends. I don't know who they were in real life, but he opened the door for them and they came in. So they came in into the house, and they're talking to Brandon. Then Brandon makes a comment. He says this: "My family is moving into Oklahoma to take care of me." So I'm like, okay. Now in the dream, I heard what he said. I'm looking at him. Now I'm not in the house, but I can see what's going on. So I'm like, okay, his family is coming to Oklahoma to take care of him. Is it because of his injury? That's what I'm thinking about in the dream. Is it because of his injury that they're coming to take care of him? And that was the end. That was the end of the dream. I woke up and I'm like, wow, why am I having a dream that Brandon injured his foot? Okay. Now, later on in the month of December, God brings this back to my memory because some other stuff happened. So, yeah, those were the dreams I had about Brandon in the month of December so far. So, December 16, y'all, it is Brandon's 30th birthday. And typically, I would fast for Brandon. The only time I didn't fast was in 2021 because of what I had going on. But typically, I would fast. This time around, I did not want to fast for Brandon. And the reason why I did not want to fast for him because, truth be told, y'all, I was not pleased with what I was seeing on social media back in September, summertime. I was not pleased. I was not pleased with Brandon at all. So because of that, I did not want to fast. And I knew if I did fast, my heart wouldn't be in it. So I was like, there's no point. There's no point of me fasting. So it's December 16th. It's Brandon's birthday. And also, too, I like to mention this, y'all. Throughout this process of me knowing about Brandon, I honestly thought that me and Brandon would have met one another by his 30th birthday because I already had plans on how to celebrate his 30th birthday. Like, I came up with birthday party themes of what I was going to do for his birthday, have a big party, have a theme about his 30th birthday. And to know that that wasn't going to be the case, it kind of like bummed me out a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so it's Brandon's 30th birthday and I'm just having thoughts of, hey, should I check on Brandon? But a part of me is like, no, I don't want to check because I don't want to see something that's going to aggravate me or irritate me or get me emotional. So I said, I'm not going to check on him. Hours after, y'all, I'm on my couch and one of the songs that was playing, actually, the song that was playing on Brandon and Caitlin's collage video, it was a song from Joe, I Want to Know. It starts playing on my Instagram because I think I was watching someone's video and that song was playing. The next thing you know, I'm having thoughts on checking on Brandon. I'm like, no, I'm not going to check on Brandon. Then I start to get the nudge to check on Brandon. I'm like, no, I am not checking on him. I'm not checking on him. I was wrestling with it. But as I was wrestling with it, the nudge was getting louder. The nudge was really getting more intense. And I was like, no. And I started to feel tormented by the nudge. So I was like, okay, I'm going to check on Brandon. So I go to my backup page. I check on Brandon. I go to his page. I don't see anything as far as like about his birthday, but he did have some posts on his page that he posted back in October, November or so, or whatever. But I go to Caitlin's page. She had a story up, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but y'all, Caitlin had a brother who passed away December 16, 2013. So they had a tradition every year, December 16th, to go to, I guess, his gravesite. I think that was a tradition. And so that was what they did that day. And I think they also get a tree in honor for him or something like that. So that was what they were doing that day, Brandon's birthday. So in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, Brandon is celebrating his birthday by celebrating somebody that's dead. And I was like, oh my goodness. Now, mind you, this was 2022. Brandon reconnected with Caitlin back in 2020. And I think he celebrated, I know that he celebrated his birthday in 2020 with Caitlin. So you mean to tell me December 16, 2020, 2021, and 2022, Brandon spent his birthday, 3 birthdays, basically remembering someone who's dead? I felt so sorry for Brandon. Like, oh my goodness, that is not a good way to celebrate your birthday, by honoring somebody or remembering someone who's dead. So I was just like, oh my goodness. And mind you, y'all, Brandon turned 30. That's a big milestone. And he's spending that day at a gravesite? Oh my goodness. I felt so sorry for him. So Caitlin had a post on her, actually she had a story. In the story, she joked about how she got Brandon a Tesla for his birthday. And then the next story was happy birthday or whatever. But typically, what I found out later on is that they don't celebrate Brandon's birthday on his actual birthday. And we're going to talk about that later on. So I remember just feeling sorry for him. And I'm like, man, that sucks that he gets to celebrate his birthday that way. So that was what happened December 16th. I'm going through the social media stuff. I find out that Brandon had a second page. I go on his second page, y'all. Brandon became a photographer. And I was like, oh my goodness, you got to be joking me. You got to be kidding me. Brandon is a photographer now. So I'm like, what happened to fitness? At that point, y'all, it seemed as if Brandon was just doing whatever. I'm like, okay, he's just doing whatever. Whatever sticks, that's what he's going to do. I exited out of my burner account and just thought about everything. Like, what is Brandon doing? Oh, what is he doing? It just seems like it's just no direction. Like, it just seemed like there was no direction in his life. And I just started to get confused too as well. Like, okay, why is Brandon still with Caitlin? Because y'all remember, I had the dream that he was on vacation by himself because he was single. So I'm like, okay, I'm having these dreams of Brandon no longer being with Caitlin. But when I check on social media, he is still with her. What is going on? So I remember getting up from my couch, going to the bathroom, and I get out of the bathroom and I'm just like, okay, Holy Spirit, like, I remember you asked me to fast for him back in October. Well, actually, the Holy Spirit asked me to fast. He didn't say I should fast for Brandon. The Holy Spirit pressed it on me to fast. I believed it was because of Brandon. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I was being pressed to fast in October and I believe it was because of Brandon, why is he still with Caitlin? Like, what's going on? And then that was when the knowing happened, y'all. The knowing happened. What dropped in my spirit was that Brandon was going to unalive himself. Yep. That was what was dropped in my spirit, that Brandon was going to unalive himself. That was why, or he had thoughts of unaliving himself, I'm trying to say. But that was what was dropped in my spirit. So this is why, or that was why the Holy Spirit had me to fast for him, because the Lord didn't want that to happen. Now, with Brandon having thoughts of unaliving himself, or him actually unaliving himself, this is what I believe was the case. I believe it was something that was planted by the enemy, and the enemy wanted to put that in effect. That was why the Holy Spirit was letting me know, hey, fast. Because he was pressing me, y'all. The Holy Spirit was really pressing me that day in October to fast, because I do believe it was something that the enemy was going to put in effect. Maybe by putting those thoughts in his head and then him actually acting on it. So, yeah. So when I heard that, I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay. So thank God I was able to fast. You know, nothing bad happened to him. He's still alive. But why is he still with her? Why is he still with Caitlin if I'm having dreams that they're no longer going to be together? So at this point, I honestly said to the Lord, like, Lord, I'm losing attraction for Brandon. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm not pleased with him. I don't like any of this that's going on. I don't like it. And because of that, I'm no longer really attractive to him. I'm not attracted to him anymore. So I said, Lord, you know, this is your will for me and Brandon to be together. You're going to have to bring that attraction back up, because I don't like what I'm seeing. And yeah. So it's probably after midnight. I'm in my bed and I'm just thinking about everything. And I'm like, man, it's crazy that now he's into photography. What about fitness? Because I know he was working at the gym. So I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? So I remember I started to do some research, y'all. I don't even know why. Actually, I do know why. I started to do research because I'm like, man, I know so much information about Brandon and Caitlyn. I don't know that much information about Brandon and Stephanie. I was just thinking like, man, I know so much about Brandon and Caitlyn. What about Stephanie? Like, to be honest, I really didn't know much about their relationship. I didn't know why they broke up. I know Brandon cheated, but I'm very sure there were things going on in that relationship that brought about the cheating, brought about some other stuff. I just didn't know what was going on. And at the same time, too, Stephanie is not like Caitlyn. Caitlyn, she posts everything. Like, she can't close her mouth about stuff. Stephanie, she was very tight-lipped about what was going on between her and Brandon. So I started doing some research about Stephanie and Brandon. I put their names on the Google search tab. And y'all, at this point, it seemed like anytime I decided to do research about someone or something, I would always find something. So I put Brandon and Stephanie's name in the search tab. The next thing you know, I see this article about arrest. And I'm like, arrest? So I click on it. I clicked on it. And it was a list of people who were arrested and summoned to court for a particular time back in April 2016. So I'm going through the list. So I'm going through April 15, April 14, 15, 16. I get to April 17, 2016, y'all. Brandon and Stephanie were arrested. April 17, 2016, Brandon and Stephanie were arrested for a peace disturbance. And I'm like, what? Oh my goodness. And this happened in This happened in Stephanie's hometown. Now, it's so crazy because I went to Facebook and Stephanie had a post it wasn't Stephanie. I think Brandon had a post. It's either Brandon or Stephanie had a post April 17, 2016. And I remember seeing a comment from Stephanie saying something with heart emojis to Brandon or something like that. I don't know, but y'all, they got arrested. They got arrested for peace disturbance. And I was just like, wow. Now, that was the beginning of my revelation concerning Stephanie, because I'm like, okay, peace disturbance. Were they playing music super loud? Was somebody doing something crazy? And then in my head, I'm like, for them to have been arrested for peace disturbance, somebody called the cops on them. So in my mind, I'm thinking domestic violence, y'all, to be honest. I'm thinking domestic violence. I'm thinking somebody was yelling at someone and then somebody called the police and that's what happened. Now, if I had to guess, y'all, I honestly believe Stephanie was either barking, yelling, screaming at Brandon. Now, this entire time, y'all, I looked at Stephanie as a saint, basically. And I kind of felt sorry for her that Brandon cheated on her and whatever. I think Stephanie did something to Brandon. So I was shook, y'all. I was shook that day. At this time, it was after 3 a.m. And I'm like, wow. So, y'all, I'm going to stop the episode right there. Next episode, I'm going to talk about all the other stuff I found out in December. So if you're liking A Likely Story, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please also share my videos as well. And until next time, bye.